In all of the Jujutsu Kaisen arcs, we have one flashback arc. The Hidden Inventory, Star Plasma arc, Gojo Past arc, whatever you prefer to call it. And that arc is fantastic from start to finish. Now, there are a couple arcs that I feel Gege has set up the potential to take place in the future, but one of these for me is a flashback arc, the Golden Age of Sorcery, the Heian era arc. This time period has been foreshadowed by Sukuna, Kenjaku, and some of the past sorcerers in the current Culling Game saga. And Gege has not missed with any of these old sorcerers. Ryu is one of the coolest characters in the entire series, and Takako is one of the most versatile techniques in the entire series with an interesting past of neglect and revenge. And of course, the savage Kashimo is off to a raw start in his debut. I love for maybe after the Culling Games or somewhere down the line, we get a good 12 to 18 chapter arc dedicated to showing what it was like during the Heian era. And one of the questions that will be asked in this is, well, whose perspective will we be seeing this through? Well, similar to the Hidden Inventory arc, I'd go with three people: Sukuna, Kenjaku, and Uraume. I don't think there's a single JJK fan that doesn't want more Sukuna content, especially regarding his past, considering he started out as a human, then he was turned into a curse, kind of like a half and half. And he did reach the status of calamity through progression in power, or was he just, born that way, similar to Gojo and Yuta? I like to see some of the fights, of course, with other sorcerers and curses that Sukuna has fought over the years. Also, I like to see just how things looked 1,000 years ago, considering this won't be modern civilization. The outlook of how the world looked would also be really interesting, and I kind of want to see how just everything was, how the politics were. I want to see how society kind of was. I want to see everything regarding that, and just how sorcerers were kind of behaved back then. I know we got a little bit of that through Megami kind of talking about how past sorcerers were thinking when they got brought back into the Culling Games, but I kind of want their motives and their ideas and what kind of their goals were, even for a time back then. Along with Sukuna, the other perspective would be Uraume, because since they are a team, I like to see how they met, why she's his personal cook, and what exactly, other than just being a chef, did Sukuna want from Uraume. We know she manipulates ice, she's a subordinate of Sukuna, but that's all we really know about her. That's all Gege kind of gave us in terms of information. And honestly, in general, how many people did Sukuna have under him? Because I'd be very surprised if Sukuna did have subordinates, that he only have one. So I'm kind of wondering if he had more. Did he have people did he have like an entire army? Like, were there people that kind of worshipped him? That was another thing I was kind of interested in, because I'm pretty sure there had to be at least a group of people kind of similar to Jogo, because Jogo kind of looked up to Sukuna through his power and his status and all that, and wanted to bring curses to the top of society. And I wonder if there were other people similar to Jogo or Uraume who kind of looked up to him or wanted to be by his side. Plus, I like to see if some of these theories of Sukuna are correct, specifically the one about him eating sorcerers for their techniques. We know he's a cannibalist, so it's not completely outrageous and out there. And honestly, for me, I just want to know why he had the fire arrow. And I believe in mythology, Sukuna does have a fire like staff and arrow thing, but there's also a second one. Don't take this for much, but I'm basing off a couple things I saw, plus the Neo 2 video game, that he has like another one, and it's like thunder based, if I remember. I'm not really sure. Honestly, Gege could do a lot with Sukuna, because I'm not really sure how prolific of a mythological figure he is in Japan, so he might toy with some of his abilities a little bit. And the third perspective of this being Kenjaku, the brain being the mastermind of basically everything. For him alone, we could have multiple perspectives. The main one being him as Kamonori Toshi, one of the most heinous men in sorcery history, and inevitably how he encounters Sukuna to make a possible deal with him regarding the fingers. Now, even in between that, I'd like some Noritoshi clan exposition a little bit, and I was kind of wondering, as the brain version, just the brain of Kenjaku, was that a mystery to everybody, or is it kind of like people knew about him similar to Sukuna, but they just rarely seen him? I'm kind of interested on that aspect, because I know Gojo was shocked to see something like that, so I wonder if back then did people know about him or not. Honestly, Kenjaku's perspective, I don't need to see much, just exposition, because regarding Kenjaku, a lot of it is self-explanatory. Now, a nice touch of some immersiveness for me is through time. We see Kashimo just hunting down sorcerers and curses, maybe Ryu with like a delinquent gang or some biker gang, Takako training with her clan, things like that. I like to see kind of like spread out in between. Now with this arc, the question would be who's the antagonist, because our protagonists for this arc are villains. So is there going to be an antagonistic force going against Sukuna, or just one antagonist? Similar to Toji going against Gojo and Geto. For me, yes, but the antagonistic force would also be evil, but evil or a villain that is villainous for reasons other than just himself, to counter Sukuna, who is pure evil and only thinks of himself and his ideals, which is why he's at the apex of curses right now. Now, who would the villain be in this situation? I have no idea, but the best idea would be to reveal a former King of Curses that's eventually taken down by Sukuna. Originally, I was thinking maybe a Ten Shadows user or a user of the Six Eyes be in the antagonist role, but I don't think we really need to see any more of those two clans, especially in this type of flashback. But like personally, I would love to see the Heian arc actually come to fruition, because me personally, I just want to know more about the Heian era, the golden age of sorcerers and sorcery back then, and especially how Kijaku talked about it, and how he specifically called out Sukuna that it was coming out and that he wanted to bring that back. And I want to see how it was at the quote-unquote peak, and you know, who was running things along with Sukuna on the other side of sorcerers, what Kenjaku was doing back then, how did things look. Was there a, you know, like I said earlier, political hierarchy kind of similar to Jujutsu headquarters? Was there anything of that nature? How strong and vicious were some of the natural sorcerers? Like, were they honestly going around looking for fights just to prove like how strong they were? Also, just so we can get clarification, and this would be really interesting to see, I'd really love to see who took down Sukuna, or what group of people took down Sukuna. Because we know beating Sukuna, even though Gojo says he could beat Sukuna even if Sukuna had all 20 fingers, he'd beat him by himself. Me personally, I'm not really entirely sure about that. You probably could, but he probably had to be, they'd have to go until like both of them dead in order to even finish each other off. But if it was a group of people, I'd like to know who these group of people were. Was it a clan? Was it just kind of random strong sorcerers that voted together and took him down? That's another thing I'd like to see as well, to see who brought Sukuna to his demise, to where he wanted to be put into these fingers so he could be brought back. Also with Uraume, what I find would be interesting is, what's her background? I want to know what her background is, especially when you think about it. She's a regular person, she's a human or a sorcerer per se, but she sided with the King of Curses. I wonder if there's a backstory with her. Maybe did she have a family? Was she betrayed by sorcerers and now she wants to work with Sukuna? Because we don't know much, but that's kind of things that comes to my mind when I think of something like that. So I hope we get some more just exposition on Uraume as well, like I said, and possible other members that were with Sukuna. And then Kijaku, I think he'd be very easily a guy you could just use him to explain a bunch of stuff that was happening around that time. And even for how the arc would end, I would actually think it'd be really cool if we saw kind of the birth of like Hanami, Jogo, Dagon, other cursed wombs as well, you know, kind of sprouting like natural curses that were on that level. I'd like to see that, you know, as they go specifically 4,000 years, it'd be cool if like every couple thousand years we're, you know, going back into like the present and, you know, what's going on now. I think that'd be really cool how it ended. That was my thoughts on a possibility of the Heian era arc possibly coming to Jujutsu Kaisen. Let me know in the comment section down below how you feel about this and the possibility of it actually coming to fruition. If so, if this does happen and you want to see it, who would you like to see the most in this said arc? If you enjoyed this type of content, leave a like, subscribe. We always doing JJK content over here. I'll let y'all in the next one. Peace.